Welcome back to the Foundations of Learning podcast, where we empower parents to reclaim their child's education and help them become lifelong learners. Today, I'm excited to sit down with Ben, the founder of Recess. It's an online platform that is reimagining homeschooling by giving the kids a chance to learn through community, curiosity, and real-world skills. We'll dive into how his experiences shaped how he sees education today and why he felt called to create a different avenue. In our conversation, we're going to talk about what Recess is, how it helps homeschoolers build a community, and how it helps them to find classes that spark the interests in their children. We also discuss practical ways that you as the parent can bring interest-based learning into your home. I think that this podcast episode is going to give you a fresh perspective on what it may look like to homeschool. So let's dive in. I've seen it a few times on different social media accounts, and they're actually talking about Recess. And I just think it's very, very interesting. But before we get into what Recess is, I just want to go into your background. So can you share a little bit about your personal journey and what led you from synthesis and SpaceX Astra school, which is crazy that you worked for them, to starting Recess?
Yeah. Okay. I'll start there. I'll start actually a little farther back. I grew up in a small town in Illinois,
Uh-huh.
and I was a very, very ADHD hyperactive kid who liked to do a lot and play a lot of video games. And in school, that was a big problem for me. So my teachers, I had a love-hate relationship with my teachers, and meaning some of them we got along great, and some of them we got along terribly. And in fifth grade, I had this one teacher who was a nice woman, but like didn't know how to handle a classroom of 25, 30 kids, didn't know how to handle, I was really rambunctious. I had a lot of energy. So I was kind of standing up and doing my homework and wiggling around and wanted to move all the time. And she recommended to my parents that I would say forcefully recommended to my parents that I go get tested for ADHD. And so I went and got tested for ADHD, and they, I was off the charts, and so got diagnosed with that. And then she was really intentional, that really recommended that I go on prescription drugs to help deal with the
Mm-hmm.
ADHD, to make her life as a teacher easier, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I went and met with some doctors, and they put me on uh, 70 milligrams of Concerta. They first put me on a lower dose, and she kept saying, "Oh, this isn't fixing the problem. This isn't fixing the problem. He's still rambunctious. He's still got lots of energy. Keep upping the dose." And so I ended up taking the maximum legal dose, which is the same dose that you give a 70, a 300-pound fully grown man. And unsurprisingly, that had a uh, was not a fun experience as like an 11, 12-year-old. It caused me some issues. Actually, if you take really high doses, it causes early onset puberty. So I had like a full beard by seventh or eighth grade. Yeah, and so there are all these issues, right? And it kind of make at those high doses, you start to have temper problems, like you have anger management problems, and you have all these things. And so when I was like 14 or 15, I really wanted to go off them, and was in high school, and so I think my parents gave me a little bit more leeway, and my teachers gave me a little bit more leeway, and I worked really hard to find ways to work around my neurodiversity, my disabilities, call them what you will, but figured out how to go for really hard runs in the morning to kind of get all the excess energy out, and schedule these big long study breaks and all these things, and ended up doing really well in school without the drugs. And looking back on it, I think I had this, I never liked school, and now when I look back on it and think that the the model's way of dealing with me, a kid who was a little bit different, was to like load me up with drugs. I think your education should mold to you and not force you to mold to it. And that's kind of been a big consistent philosophy of mine, and trying to build a program and an experience that would have taken me as an 11-year-old and try to develop my curiosity and get me excited about building things, and do all this without tons of drugs. And so we think a lot about that. And one of the reasons we call it Recess is, I liked free choice as a kid. I liked choosing what I did. I liked having time to explore and run around. I liked the freedom. And so we kind of built this whole company around this idea that kids are actually pretty good at figuring out how to spend their time, and they're actually very motivated learners, and they can be really excited to do great work if you give them the opportunity. And so the question is, how do you give them the right opportunity? How do you create the right conversations between a parent and their kid about what they're working on and why they're working on it, and how academics fit into to what they want to do with their day. And so anyway, so that's kind of what recess is about, and I can talk more about some other parts. But yeah, fast forward a bunch. I can skip through the rest of my background, but I had this bad experience with school. And so in my early 20s was trying to figure out what should I do with my career. I had started off in kind of machine learning and computer data stuff and decided that education seemed like the most interesting problem in the world. It was a big, a big part of everyone's childhood, everyone's life. There wasn't a ton of change in it. You know, when I was looking at the space, restaurant delivery software got more investment than education. Like as a society, we invested more dollars into getting you your food 90 seconds faster than we did into how we educate kids. And I thought that represented some sort of mistake by society, by civilization, that, we should be investing a ton in education. And so I decided to go work on it. And then was trying to figure out, well, how do I learn about education? I started reading all the books. I just went and bought, Dewey and Gatto and of course Montessori and Papert and a whole bunch of these people who'd been thinking about what education could look like. Started reading all the research coming out of institutions, and so that part was cool. But I'd never worked in a school. I taught a few classes, but I didn't have kids, so I was like, how am I going to learn about what the right way to educate is? And so I went to go try to work for this guy named Josh Don and Crispin Frank, who had just started this company called Synthesis, and had built this school at SpaceX. And I really just wanted to learn from Josh, and so I was basically his teaching assistant for a year on and off and helped build cool products for them. And then I found out there was this one insight that kind of led to the first version of Recess, which was how engaged kids were in their classes. And I noticed that when kids had a friend in their class, they stuck with it way longer and they were way more engaged with it. And when I think back on my own childhood, that's totally right. When class assignments came out, the first thing I did was text all my friends and find out what their schedules were and if we were in the same class. And so I thought maybe we can come bring this experience to homeschoolers, and they take these different online classes. They have a little bit more direction over their education. And I'm just going to make a way for them to like make friends in their classes and then keep those friends from class to class. So they can have long relationships with the people they meet. Instead of meeting them for one class for 3 months and then leaving the class and you never see them again, you can get to know kids over the course of 2 or 3 years and become, lifelong friends. And that's kind of a lot of what Recess is about, is like this social network built on top of the rest of your homeschooling. And so your kids, yeah, make friends, and it's not social media, it's social network. I think those are really different. It's a way to connect with other kids and chat with them. And yeah, so that is from, my childhood and my issues with school to wanting to work on it and learning from these great people, and then to this insight around, the social part is really important, to learn with people you like learning with. And if you like going to class, it makes a big difference. And then you can build these great relationships over a long period of time with kids from all over the country, all over the world, who share your interests. And that is Recess in a nutshell.
Yeah, there's a lot in there. And now I have like a million other questions that I obviously have questions, but now I'm like, okay, I'm like trying to like type down the things that I'm wanting to ask you about it, because there's so many things in there that you just talked about that are problems within our education system. And I taught as a first grade teacher, and I saw the kids that were just like you, right? That had what we would deem in the school system behavioral problems or a disability or whatever. And really, when you got these kids outside of the mold of the school system or like the structure of it, they would thrive, and they were confident, and they were hard workers, and they were interested, and they would, explore new ideas. And a lot of kids with ADHD too, they really have I feel like they're really good at thinking outside of the box. That's just like from my own experience, is they are very creative. I don't know that this is always all kids with ADHD, but like for the most part, they're a little more creative. They think outside of the box and have different questions or ideas or solutions or whatever than a lot of the other kids. And when you allow them to like actually, you know, have the freedom in that, they do so much better in school. And like you said, just having more breaks and allowing them to get their energy out is so important. So like, you know, I wasn't the teacher that
Totally.
was like, you have to sit and do your work. Like you can, if you need to stand and do it, I don't care. If you need to go do a lap around the room really fast, do it. If you need to, you know, hit some stuff on a desk really fast just to get that out of you, like do it. So
Yeah.
I was not very strict in that way. And obviously, you know, that was the first thing that in education you'd be talking to other teachers and they're like, yeah, I just have this kid that he has way too much energy. And usually it's a he.
Yeah.
And he has way too much energy and he's not focusing and he's not, you know, learning or whatever. And I think I need to talk to his parents and, you know, get them to assess, you know, take him to the doctor to assess what his problems may be. When really it's just that our system is not really set up for really boys in general, but especially people that have like ADHD or even like are slightly on the spectrum in autism, because
Yeah.
yes, I do believe there is truly a spectrum because I've had them in my classrooms. And
Definitely.
yeah, it's just not set up for those kids to really thrive. And
Yeah.
you can, and you really don't need to be medicated. I think that we have people in our society like you for a reason. And it's not because, and like the school system makes you feel like there's something wrong with you, like there, you have a disability or something. But really, you have so many gifts that we don't have if you don't have ADHD. And I don't know. I think it's really a sad state of affairs that, you know, kids like you grow up hating school. And I mean, I didn't have ADHD. I didn't have any sort of learning problems or anything like that. And I didn't even like school. Like,
Totally.
so it's
Yeah.
kind of funny that I went into teaching, but I felt like it was more of me being like, okay, I'm going to make a different experience for these kids. But
Yeah.
when you're in the system, it's really hard to break out of that mold because you have so much red tape and bureaucracy around how the, you know, school day has to run and the curriculums you're using and all of this stuff. So it's like really, really hard to break away from it. And then when you're in college, you learn about, you know, all these different theorists, like behavioral theorists and cognitive theorists and all of these things. But the one thing that you're never really taught about is play, which is super, super important
Yeah.
for these young kids.
Yeah.
They need play. Like that is how they learn. That is the real
Yeah.
learning. So you
Totally.
need, you know, 95% of it needs to be play and 5% can be lessons. And if you do it in a skill-based way, they can go super fast. And then like you said with, you know, learning with friends, kids love to work with their peers and learn
Yeah.
from their peers. It is
Yeah.
more beneficial for them to learn through peers as well, because one, they're going to listen to their peer better, and two, if there's a
Yeah.
child that's a little more advanced than the other kid, they have to teach somebody else what that concept is, and if you can teach somebody it, you have mastered it. And so when
Yeah.
you have, you know, these different dynamics, it's so, so important in a child's learning. And so I think it's really cool that you are bringing that peer aspect to homeschooling, because that is one big thing, right? That people say is like, oh no, how are they going to be socialized? Like that's like the biggest thing in homeschooling, which I also find funny because I was a teacher and I know what socialization looks like in schools, and it's
Yeah.
not true socialization.
Yeah.
Your
Right.
true socialization is recess, and you get, I
Totally.
mean, 30
Yeah.
minutes a day max. That's as much as my kids got, unless I was the one that was like, okay, we're going to break all the rules and we're going to play for 30 minutes outside of recess time. Like, oh my gosh, you guys, I'm going to go to jail because
Yes.
I'm letting you guys play. So yeah, I think that is so amazing that you're setting something up for homeschoolers, especially if you're in an area where, you know, you don't have as many co-ops, or maybe that's just not a possibility for you, you know, like if you live in, I don't know, the boondocks somewhere and
Yeah.
you're
There about a third
isolated.
of our customers are really rural, and that's a huge thing. My first reaction is, I wish I had had you as teacher. I
Oh,
think that would have been a really good experience for me as a little kid. And the second one is on this piece of like socialization. Yeah, I think that it's like kind of a trigger word for a lot of homeschoolers too. And I
mm-hmm.
think, yeah, I've probably met 5,000 homeschoolers over the last 3 years, and yeah, there's not a socialization problem. Maybe in
No.
extreme cases, like you grow up really rural and both your parents are working out of the home most of the day, and you don't
Mm-hmm.
have siblings. You do run into kids who haven't developed some social skills, like they haven't spent enough time to be able to read emotions on other people's faces and know how to interact and do those things. But that's the minority.
Yeah.
Like these days, I think they're socialized. They're charismatic, fun little kids. I do think there is, even if you have co-ops and things nearby, there's kind of two parts that I think are still different. One is you still spend a lot more time at home and alone if you're homeschooled than if you're in a traditional school, and I think that's
Hmm.
great in a lot of ways to have that to like learn independence and spend time reading books and doing things that are interesting to you and kind of exploring. Um, but it's nice to break up the day with social interaction and to have access to your friends kind of all the time. It's like, I like getting texts from my friends throughout the day, even while I'm working and doing things, and helps me feel connected to them. And so I think that's a cool experience to be able to give them. And the second is around interests. Like when I was a kid, I was really, really into starting businesses. Not that big of a surprise, but um, and so most of my friends who played video games were playing video games like Call of Duty or Madden, which was, like a football game. And I really wanted to play these big open world multiplayer games because you could start little businesses inside them. Since there were tons of other players, you could like come up with an idea to help some other player, and then you could charge money for it, and you could do that over and over again. And so I always thought that was really, really interesting. And no one in my town was interested in that kind of stuff.
Mm.
And eventually I found this one kid, and we became like best friends and are still super good friends. And we worked on that all the way through. And I think this is true for, every kid I think has their unique interest that's kind of special to them, whether it's figuring out how to build computers or they're really into doing 3D art and animation and they want to make little movies or they want to do this. And there might not be, one of their local friends might not be really into that or might not be at the same level as them. And that's where turning to the internet can get really special is you can find these great mentors. And, if you're an animator, one of the features we have on Recess is actually called jobs. And so kids can post jobs to each other. And it's really common for a kid who's into drawing to post a job for a musician to help score their little movie or
That's
to
so
post a
cool.
job for an actor to come voice over one of their characters, right? And so I think that's kind of a cool thing that is, I think, uniquely possible on a platform like Recess. That'd be hard to do locally. So anyways, those are my reactions to kind of, you had a bunch of interesting bits.
Did you know that over 60% of US students fall below grade level in reading, and it often starts in the grades kindergarten through second grade? Don't let your child become a statistic. My Science of Reading Simplified course gives you a step-by-step tool to teach phonics, vocabulary, writing, and reading comprehension. If you want to equip your child to succeed, start today. Visit k3homeschoolfoundations.com or check out the link down below to get started. I know I'm not the only mom who wants to be present with her kids, but sometimes I have no idea what to actually do with them. Once my daughter becomes a toddler, I already know I'll want more than just screen-free time. I'll want connection, learning, and purposeful play. But coming up with those ideas on my own every day, that sounds exhausting. That's why I love what Learning with Kelsey offers. These boxes are full of hands-on, play-based activities designed to help you connect, teach, and enjoy your child all without prep. Whether it's fine motor skills, letters, numbers, or sensory play, there's something for every age and stage. So if you're like me, wanting to make learning meaningful at home, use my link and get 15% off your first box. You can be the teacher, guide, and safe place for your child's needs, and it doesn't have to be complicated. Yeah, I think that's super important. Like you said, even as an adult, we have those problems, right? Like, I'm just going to give you an example. My husband, he goes and he films hunts and things like that, and he was gone for almost like 2 weeks. And so it was just
Yeah.
me and my daughter, and I was about to lose my mind. I was like, I need some socialization right now.
Totally.
So I went down to my in-laws house. I went down to my parents' house,
Yeah.
and tried to like break up my day. And I don't have a bunch of friends up where we live right now. So it's like,
Right.
especially like mom friends, right? That are kind of like in
Right.
your same stage of life and
Yes.
stuff. And so it's really hard to find that even as an adult, right? And so you
Yeah.
see, and you all have different interests and things like that. And so, you have social media and you can kind of make connections. And obviously I've made some connections and I still talk to those people and stuff like that on social media. And so I think it's so important that is one thing that social media can do for us, right? Is get you a community that you might not have access to where you're currently living. And obviously, I could
I
probably,
think us.
yeah, like I could
We
probably do
kind of do.
better and like go out and like actually like go to the library or something and try to,
Yeah.
find people. But when you're trying to find people that, are interested in the same things as you or whatever, like it is really hard. And so when you look at, the internet is a great place to go and find, people that you may not have within your
For us,
community.
for adults,
Yeah,
it
for adults.
can be a good place. It still takes a lot of work as an adult. Like, we had to go and listen to tons of podcasts and try and find people who are into education and had a similar philosophy to us, and then use email to reach out and get
Mhm.
connected, right? And now we can have this cool conversation. We're both interested in the same topic, and we'll be friends and we'll email each other stuff back and forth. And, oh, did you see this article? And, oh, check out this thing that we're making.
Mhm.
And that'll kind of be a fun way to connect with over our unique interest. For kids, one, internet, way too big and scary of a place to like
Yes.
meet strangers on the internet. Not a thing you can do.
100%.
Not a thing you can do. And two, um, yeah, I mean that's the first big one. Then two, it's even hard to like. I think when you're an adult, you're down to just talk and do a podcast and just become friends by just talking. But when you're
Mhm.
10, that is not really the way you make friends. You make friends
No.
by like playing games together or doing art together or making something together or running around together or doing this. And so it kind of needs to be like based on something you like.
Mhm.
And none of the existing platforms I think are built for that. And so here you take let's say you're really into art. Yeah, you take a class on how to make I'm just going to stick with this movie example, how to make little movies. And you meet five other kids who like to make little movies, and the whole time you might not even learn each other's name. It's pretty common at the end of the hour for these two kids to have been like best friends for the hour, and they're in such a good mood, and they're like, "Wait, what's your name?" And right,
Yep.
and for them it's about the activity and the personality and getting along. And so I think that's one example where like when you combine the classes and the experiences that the kids can do together with, okay, now you have the safe chat where you can talk to each other after class and get to know each other. You actually start to build friendships with kids who share your interests. um
Yeah, I think that's super important. Like you said, the internet is a big, scary place. It's a big, scary place for adults, let alone children. And so having
Totally.
a safe place that they actually can go meet kids. So I guess, I mean, this isn't even really a question that I had for you, but in thinking about that as well, right? You have like these horror stories of, these internet
Yeah, totally.
places that are supposed to be safe for kids, right? And then all of a sudden there's like creeps on this platform, whatever. So like how do you mitigate that, I guess, at recess to make sure that it's, kids of that age? I don't know if it's like video calls, like how does that actually
Yeah,
work? Like is it all video and everything and everyone has to have their camera on, or like what is the parameters there for that?
I'll talk about a few things. The first is a general piece of advice to all parents, and it's if the product is free or very cheap, it's not safe. And anyone
That's a
who
great
tells you
point.
that they're free or online cheap product, whether it's Roblox or some other thing, is safe
Mhm.
for kids, it's just not. It actually is very expensive to make it safe for kids and to do the moderation. And even just taking payment, you have helps you do identity verification, right? So one of the reasons we take
Mm.
payment before you can join the platform is all is we're doing identity verification and complying with the Child Online Protection and Privacy Act. um, Most people's way of dealing with the Child Online Privacy and Protection Act is to not collect the kid's info.
Mhm.
So username only, no like name password. But uh, that's not filtering out adults. That's just making it so they don't know if you're a kid or not.
Mm.
So they can
Okay.
comply because they don't know what your birth date is and they don't know any information about you. And so they can say, oh, well,
Mhm.
since we don't know anything about them, it's safe. But
Mm.
that's not really how it works. So, but on ours, it's really really rigorous to keep it safe. So one, uh, every parent has to go through and sign up with the parent's name, and with their credit card, which helps us do identity verification. Then two, um, everyone joins to a group video call, and every kid's account is locked. So when you join Recess, you can't really do anything. You can't make any friends. You can't make any posts. You can't join any classes. You can't go to any events. And then once you've gone to this like orientation call where one of our guides meets you and your parent, we have to meet both of you on that call, um, and a few other kids. Then we will progressively unlock your account, so you get access to more things. And then the next safety measure is you can only add someone as a friend if you've been in a live class with a teacher with that kid.
Okay.
So you can't you can't get to know random kids from the experience. You have to have met them under adult supervision, and then you get to add them as a friends. The parents get notified of their friends. The parents can always check in and read the chat messages. They can always audit the friendships. They get notifications of new friends. They can request to meet the other parent if they want anytime, and we'll actually ask both parents and then introduce them, which is fun because actually a bunch of homeschool parents get to make and build community that way. And like that's how most of my parents' friends are my friends' parents from when I was like 5, right? That we were in the same preschool class or whatever. And so how do you bring something similar to that to homeschoolers? And those are kind of the first steps. And then we have put a ton of money, like over $1 million
Yep,
and
you
a
good.
ton of time with really, really smart engineers into building this moderation system, which is like state of the art and flags us about a few things. The first one is PII, so personally identifiable information. So you can't share your email address on Recess. You can't share your last name. You can't share your birth date. You can't share where you live. I think we let you say what time zone you're in, but nothing that is PII, personally identifiable information, and we'll actually let the parent know when their kid attempted to send personally identifiable information. Um, and and then we have other moderations. We basically rank everything on like a cyberbullying. So we filter out cyberbullying. And so we you know we just delete the message immediately. And then if it's any sort of like repeated incident, we reach out to the kid and have a direct conversation with the kid and the parent. And so, I think a lot of parents are like, why would I pay for my kid making friends? What a weird thing to pay for. Really, they're paying for the classes and the experiences. But the second part is it's the rest of these things, which take us a ton of time and effort to make sure that this is a place where your kid can be free and express themselves, and you and they don't have to worry about all that.
Yeah, I really love that. I'm like thinking over here like, okay, obviously I'm not going to start anything crazy with my daughter until she's, well, probably about 6-ish,
Yeah,
7-ish. Honestly,
yeah,
I'm probably not going to start like structured learning until then. It's just going to be a lot of exploration on her end and play, and that's really all she needs at that point, and read alouds and just doing life with mom and dad, and and we're going to have future children as well, and so it's going to be very different. But I'm thinking like, okay, this is a great platform, like for reals. Like I'm going to be homeschooling my kids, and
yeah,
I'm thinking about like, okay, how can I, get them into classes, one, that are of their interest that maybe I'm not specialized in,
totally.
that they can, learn from. Like, I have no idea how to do coding. I have no idea,
Yes,
like you said, like they were composing art, or not composing art,
yeah,
composing music. And, they had somebody else that they wanted to do like a voiceover thing or whatever, like all of that stuff. Like, I'm not specialized in that. So being able to have somebody else to teach them, if they wanted to learn how
yeah,
to, I'm assuming like play the guitar or how to code or, create their own video game or whatever it
yeah,
is, right? So I think that is super cool. And so kind of go into a little bit on that. Like, what do you guys offer for the courses? And then I know that you are super into kid-led learning. So what does that
yes,
really look like as far as, the person that's teaching the child something and also creating it to be more of a kid-led learning environment?
yeah. So there's a few things. The first is that we have a rule. We don't teach anything. We only teach things that are better taught on the computer. So, for example, no guitar.
Okay.
We think it's better to teach guitar in person because you can actually go and, move the kids' fingers around and you can show them how to strum. and you can play together, and it's really easy to harmonize and share rhythm, and there's all these things. So no guitar,
Okay.
um, no gymnastics. There's tons of classes that we don't teach, but
Yeah, that would be
anything
hard.
that like gymnastics is popular on Outschool. They do teach a lot of classes there, and so
Oh,
what we
I
try and deliver is we want to deliver the for everything that we offer on platform, we want to offer the best classes that exist, period. Not that
mm-hmm.
exist on the internet, not that exist in your local town, that exist anywhere on the planet. So if you're going to come and try and take a coding experience, it's going to be taught by a professional software engineer who's built really interesting projects and is like particularly charismatic and great with little kids. And they're going to leverage the best software that is most relevant and most interesting to kids. And they're going to get to use these challenges that take them and farther. And so only things that are better taught on a computer than in person. And then we are trying to recruit the best mentors and teachers on the planet. And and we overpay for teaching talent, I think, a lot more than other platforms. Like tons of teachers on Recess make $200 an hour
Mm.
teaching. Now some of them only make $40 an hour or $50 an hour. Almost everyone makes $40 or $50 an hour, and it's because we pass the vast majority of like we pass we take half as much money from the teachers as Outschool, just as an example of a comparison 1 to 2. And Outschool is pretty
Mm-hmm.
good. They actually pass on 60% of the revenue straight to the
Mm-hmm.
teacher. We pass like closer to 80 straight to the teacher. And so that lets us recruit the best teachers on the planet because we think this is the best place for them to earn a living and build their experiences. That's number one. And then so question number two is like, what are those experiences? What are things that are better taught on a computer? First, it's how to use a computer really well, which we think is one of the highest value skill sets that you can have. And it applies to any career you would want to go into, even if you're going to a career that does, you know, even if you're onto construction. A huge portion of construction, from doing the budgets to designing the buildings to ordering the materials to doing inventory checks on them to doing quality assurance to filing with the local government for all the different permits that you need, all those things are still based on the computer. So there's, even for something like construction, which is like the least computer based industry I think you'd come up with, probably about a third of the time spent by people working on a construction project on the computer. And so that number one is teach how to use a computer really well. And that starts with typing really fast and being able to type on your keyboard without looking at the keys. And then it's about shortcuts and how do you navigate a computer and how do you move back and forth between windows and how do you Google things really well and use AI to search things that you don't know about, and all those basics. And those are the basics. And
Mm-hmm.
then we get into the fun stuff like how do you um, write code and write programs that do all sorts of things. From you can make your own music, create your own music software that works just the way you want, to build your own games, to a bunch of kids have made their own drawing programs that they prefer to Procreate because they had some idea for a unique brush that doesn't exist or this that doesn't exist, and so they make it just for that. And so build custom software just for you, how to use AI in these interesting ways. And then like there's all the big movies these days are made in these video editing softwares and graphics softwares. And so we teach kids, we've got the number one YouTuber who teaches graphics software, teaches only teaches on Recess and just teaches kids. And so if you want to learn about how to make an animated movie like the ones that come out from Pixar and whatever, we'll teach you how to do that. And yeah, so this shape of stuff, it's all about how to use your iPad to make art, even if you like drawing, how to make art that you could never make on paper. And so anything about how to use a computer really well is mostly what they're about. And some of those we think are interesting games and simulations that teach teamwork, collaboration, problem solving, strategic thinking, resource allocation, logic. And there's all these little things you can do. As a small example, one of the highest paying careers in the world right now is designing computer chips. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that will be one of the highest paying jobs for forever, right? That will never, it'll always be good to have a more powerful computer, and that will always be much really valuable. And if the robots come and the self-driving cars come, it even gets more valuable. And so that's always a super valuable career. Building a computer chip is not something you can teach your kid at home. in person, in the real world. It's not possible to build a computer chip. Even a simple one requires like millions of dollars of equipment, right? Even if you go to college, you still can't work on designing a computer chip. You have to end up going to, and even if you go to like a good graduate research institution, most of them, you still can't work on building a computer chip. You have to model them on the computer, right?
Okay.
And so you have to be in this tiny little part of Taiwan and a couple other places to actually be able to build computer chips. But in Minecraft, they have a special part of it that called redstone, where you can essentially build computers from scratch in Minecraft. And there have been kids who've been hired at Intel and NVIDIA who got their start building computer chips and actually got hired based on their projects in Minecraft. And so another example of like, okay, your kid's into Minecraft and they're kind of smart and they like thinking about logic and they like math a little bit. And, we can give them this experience that we think sets them up for an epic career. And in the meantime, you know, they're not preparing for a career. In their head, they're building a trap door so no one can get into their house. Right? That's what they want. They want it so they can build this secret little place that nobody can get into. And when you walk through the door, the lights turn on because that's cool and special and no one else has that. And so that in their head, they're doing that. And in our head, they're preparing for, one of the highest paying careers that exists. And so those are the kinds of classes that we offer. We recruit really good people. We're definitely not in I would say we skew more premium than we do low cost. There are some low cost experiences just for making friends and being social. But those are kind of the minority. And then the last thing I'll say kind of about this classes thing, friends thing is around cost effectiveness, becoming a kid-led learner. Like, I think if you're serious about kid-led learning, then it's actually not about a class. So we do have kids pick all their own classes at recess and they ask their parents for them. So their parents can't sign them up. The initial demand has to come from the kid. The motivation has to come from the kid, and then the parent can say, "Oh, that's, I value this thing you're working on," or "That doesn't fit with what my plans are for your education." And so the parents have final say, but the idea must come from the kid. But my real thing is, if you're serious about childhood learning, that doesn't happen in the classes. That happens in all the hours outside the class. So if it's really kid-led learning, they should be, and they sit in your class for an hour, they should be doing 6 or 8 hours of work for that class, based on that class, by their own choice, that isn't with the teacher. They should be independently deciding to do that work. And that's another thing where I think the friend part becomes really important. When you have a friend who you love building computers with in Minecraft and building houses in Minecraft, it's that much easier and more likely that you'll spend your free time doing that. Right? Because you'll call each other up and do that, and you got to know each other in that class, and so you'll do it for fun. And so the friend thing is actually really important. I always talk about 1 in, 8 out. That's a phrase I say a lot at recess. 1 in, 8 out. And our dream is that we teach your kid for an hour, but they get 8 hours of learning out of it. Because we hook them and they go, you teach them a little bit of coding and they spend the rest of that week building their favorite game and working on it and watching YouTube videos. And if the only time they ever do work on coding is when they come to our class, we'll actually message you and say, I don't know if this class is right for them. We haven't been able to hook their attention. And so this question of like, what are the classes and how do we think about child-led learning? It's about getting them to do this work independently. And we think if we do our jobs right, they can drop our class and keep learning without us.
Yeah, I think that's super important. And one thing that I think we forget in the way that we see education because of the school system is that, we go to a place, They tell us information, we learn information, we take the test on the information, and then we kind of just forget about it and move on and continue that until we graduate. And that's kind of how school is set up, right? And so when we're like, oh, how do we make it like kid led, and the child is the one that's taking the initiative and things like that, it's like we try to just like add play into the same thing that we're like doing. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Yes.
Like we don't really
Yeah.
actually let them lead. We just like still give them the thing that they
Yes.
have to do, and then we were like, but
Yeah.
hey, we made it
Do you want this
fun.
worksheet or that worksheet?
Yes, like it's very
Do you want
different
this
in what
worksheet or that worksheet? And do you want candy or recess at the end? Those are kind of like, and that's kid-led learning.
Yes, exactly. And that is how you do it in a public school for reals. Is
Yeah.
like, well, I'm giving them choice. Like they get to
Yeah.
choose which one they're doing. And so it's like, that's kid led learning. Or you're like, we're doing personalized learning. But in the personalized learning, it's like, I'm still giving them exactly what I want them to do. And
Yes.
so I think it's really funny that you said that, because when we think about kid led learning, it's not like, hey, my child is interested in said thing, so like let's just go full send on it because they're super interested in it and they're going to be motivated to do it outside of school, or outside of class, right? So that they continue on with learning more and more about it. And
Yeah.
and that's what real learning is. That's what we do as adults. It's not like we have someone that tells us, okay, everyone, today we're going to be learning about the 1900s. No, you might just really find the 1900s super interesting and you want to learn about everything that happened and who, lived during that time and what role did they play in our society and whatever, right? Like we just do that naturally as adults,
Yeah.
and we don't do that in education. So I think that's super funny that you said that, because I don't know, that's not how we view it, and that's not what we view learning as. And I think about, I had so many first graders that loved Minecraft. That was like
Yeah.
their
Of course.
absolute
Of
favorite
course.
thing to do. And they weren't allowed to do it in school. Like, you're not
Right.
allowed to play on Minecraft. It's like blocked and everything. Like, you can't even
Yeah.
get onto it. And there's certain things like I understand a little bit about, because like I can't control exactly, like I can't see everything that 20 kids are
Right.
doing at one time. But, yeah, it's funny because you're like, no, Minecraft is not real learning. That's not
Yeah.
what we're doing today, right? But it's something that they're so interested in it, and they could spend hours talking to
Yeah.
me about Minecraft and all of
Yes.
these different things that they built in Minecraft. And I'm like, well, that's
Yeah.
super cool. I don't even know what Minecraft is, but that sounds super fun. And they were really good with the computer and they knew how to do things that I didn't even know how to do. And so I think it's, taking something like that, like you said, and if they are interested in it, they will just continue on learning about it because it's fun for
Right.
them and they want to do it. And so instead of us trying to still keep them in parameters, you're not keeping them in parameters, and they're learning on their own because they want to. Nobody's telling me, hey, I love to learn about literacy and how our brains work to learn how to read and,
Yeah.
write and all of that. And like, nobody's sitting there telling me you have to learn this. Like, I just read books about it because I find it interesting and I learn more about it. And it's funny because I actually just had another girl on my podcast, and anyways, I was telling her about the books that I've read, and I was like, this one's a little more like, introduction to it, and it's, very basic, and this one is like if you want to really nerd out on it.
Yeah.
And she's reading the one now that you really have to really like learning
Yes.
about literacy, because if
Yeah.
you don't, that book is so boring. And she's like, I have to focus so hard to even read this book. Like,
Yeah.
it's real rough. And that's kind of what you're talking about, right? Like,
Yeah.
they're going to go on to more advanced skills in that area because they find it interesting and they like doing it. Just as nobody's just going to pick up Proust and Squid and just start reading it because they think, oh, this, like, they're going to hate it unless they like literacy.
Yeah. Unless they're motivated by it for some important, right. And like same with building the Minecraft computers. If I try to say, hey, I'm going to teach you, hey kids, I'm going to teach you how to build a computer in Minecraft, they don't care.
Yeah, if
But if
it's
you say,
not to their mission, like if it's
but
not
if it's not their
helping them
vision,
to do what they want to do in Minecraft, then they don't care.
yeah. But then when you say, I'm going to help you build a trap door so no one can get into your house, now all of a sudden that is extremely exciting. Right. And it's
Exactly.
actually the same exact, the content is the same. And like when I think, And a lot of people, I think, when they think about personalized learning in schools, like I remember I was doing, I was writing a paper and my teacher was like, why don't you write about, I liked playing tennis as a kid. She's like, why don't you write about playing tennis? And I was like, okay, like, how's that going to help me at tennis?
Mm-hmm.
Right? I'm like, I could
Yep.
write this paper about tennis, like, sure, fine. But the reason I'm interested, the reason I would care about this is because it would help me be better at tennis.
Yeah.
And and so whenever that kind of stuff came up, I kind of was like, might as well, because what else am I going to write about? Who cares? But
Mm-hmm.
I had but one time my dad taught me, you serve in tennis and you can go, or just when you're hitting a ball, you can hit it straight or you can hit it
Mm-hmm.
across the court, cross court.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad was telling me always, hey, you should hit cross court, you should hit cross court. And I was like, I don't care. And then he pulled out a sheet of paper and showed me the Pythagorean theorem and showed me that if you hit
Mm-hmm.
it cross court, it's longer. So the court's, I think it's 81 feet long, or that might be
Mm-hmm.
the cross. I can't remember the numbers anymore, but you get like 10%. The court's 10% longer going cross court than it is straight. And so he said, so if you're going to miss it 3 feet out, you'll be in by 5 feet if you hit it cross court. But if you hit it down the line, and so you really want to hit cross court because you'll just make more shots. And that stuck in my head, and like I will always remember that, drawing on top of the tennis court from, down that line and over this line and that way, and oh, that's the longest line. I get it. Um,
Mm-hmm. And then you got to try it. So that's
and
the other important piece, right? Like it wasn't
totally,
just like, here's some information and then you do nothing with it.
yeah,
It's like, no, it was like all put together into you being better at tennis, right? And then you got to
yes,
actually put that into play and see, oh, that worked or that helped me with whatever it was in tennis. I'm not a tennis expert, so I couldn't tell you.
yeah.
But no,
No,
I
but they
think
have
that's super
the
important.
whole way. I remember like, and I actually like the sports math thing was always a thing. Um, and yeah, so that's I don't even know but yeah, personalized learning. I think it's like you have to make it interesting and relevant to the kids and help them at their goals. You can't
Yes.
just say, "Oh, did you know that these two topics are related?" That's not
Yeah.
enough.
No, it has to really make sense to the end goal of what they want to do with that. And I was thinking too when you were saying, that there's all these classes on Outschool and stuff, like, you could learn how to play guitar on Outschool. You might not do as well because, like you said, your fingers and how they go on the guitar.
Yeah,
My brother is learning how to play the guitar right now, and so he has one, and I was asking him like how you do certain, things on a guitar because I've always wanted to learn how to play the
yeah,
guitar, and he really did. He had to like move my fingers
totally.
to put them on the chords correctly because I wasn't putting them on the chords correctly, and like how much pressure you actually have to put on them. And so it was really hard, and he had to actually show me with my fingers. So when you're thinking of something like that, yeah, that would be really hard actually to learn online. And then same thing with like gymnastics. Like I took
Of
gymnastics all
course.
growing up, I
Yeah.
danced, all of that stuff. No
No way.
one is going to be able to teach you how to do a back handspring unless they are right next to you and you
Yeah.
are literally moving their physical body in that how they have to do it to do a back handspring. You might be able to teach them something basic like how to do a somersault or how to do a cartwheel or, a
Yeah.
back bend or something. But if you go into, a round off and back handspring and a tuck and like all of these different things, like you can't teach a kid that via the internet. That's impossible. And so I think that, I didn't even think about that, but yeah, you would have to have classes. And even I would almost say teaching a kid to read not that I would say because I had to do it in 2020 and it was
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
hard to do
Yeah.
it online. It's possible, but it's
Yeah.
really hard to do it online because especially when you're teaching those really young kids, you really having that hands-on piece to it where,
Yeah.
they're moving blocks and things and you can actually be right next to them as they're doing it or, how
Yes.
they're holding their pencil and fixing their fingers so that it's
Yeah.
actually, the correct way and so many different things that yeah, you can do it, but it's really hard.
It's
So,
really hard. And I
yeah.
think for us it's less about like we don't want to bash anyone who does teach those things online. And if you take those classes,
No.
And that's
Yeah,
great.
I'm
Like,
not bashing them. Like, I mean, if that's something that you are, if they want to learn more about it, I think
yes, those are cool, and
that's
they can be more
important.
cost
Yeah.
effective, and there's all these things
Mm-hmm.
about it that are good. But I
Yeah.
think what it means is when you take a class on recess, you can feel very confident that it is one of the best classes on that material you could take anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You can have like you don't have to think about one of the things we want to do is so hard. Homeschool parents got to like organize the math curriculum and the writing curriculum and the science curriculum and the sending stuff to the state and like what's my schedule going to be like and how do I do this and which things can I teach and all these things.
Mm-hmm.
And if we the more the easier we can make it for you, the better. And like
Mm-hmm.
we just want when you look through our marketplace of experiences, we want you to have really high trust that everything there was very intentionally chosen. There were real humans who met that teacher, interviewed them, worked with them, talked about their teaching philosophy, observed their first 3 classes, thought about if this material was better, was well suited for the computer or not, and interviewed 20 people for that exact topic and picked that one. And like that amount of care goes into every experience on the marketplace, and there's nothing there by accident, and it's not open. Like not anybody can sign up to teach. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think, and so that for us, it's about that. It's about like this confidence that everything you're going to take is good. It might not be
Mm-hmm.
perfect for your kid because they might not be interested in it, or it might be too hard for them, um, or they might not be a personal math teacher. But you can feel confident, like this is a high quality experience with a vetted teacher that they've put a lot of time and thought into what goes on here.
Yeah, and I think that is important because, and like you said, with the whole paying thing, right? There's that saying, you get what you pay for. And it really is true. Like if you want the best of the best teacher to be teaching your child, whatever it is, whether that be, about coding or software engineering or
Yeah,
whatever, you want the best of the best to be able to, because then what's the point, right? Like if you're taking
right.
a class that's like mediocre, then what is the point? The point of learning is to become better. And
Yeah,
if it's not, a great class, it's an okay class, you might not become a master in that. You might just kind of know what you're doing, right?
yeah, and you might not love it,
And you
and
might
like
not love it.
that's the most important part is you end up really
Mm-hmm.
loving it.
Yeah. So I know that you have seen like different angles in education.
Yeah.
So where do you think that education is actually going to be heading in the next 5 to 10 years?
Um, Great question. I think that more parents are going to take it into their own hands. A lot more parents are going to play a bigger role in how their kid is educated, both from a values and morals perspective, and from a what knowledge are they acquiring, how do they learn. You know, realize they're going to realize that the schools think about the kids as a class. And I think a lot
Mm-hmm.
of the teachers are wonderful, but the teachers you only keep them for a year, and then you switch from teacher to teacher thereafter, and you might in later years period by period. And there's not really somebody in the school system who's like thinking really hard about your kid and what's right for your kid. And I think
Mm-hmm.
more parents are going to realize that and are going to play a more active role in setting up the right experience for their own child, their own
Mm-hmm.
children. That's change number one. Change number two is I think the software to learn core academics. So to master your math facts, your multiplication tables, to learn how to do long division, to learn, the basics and early algebra. I actually think all the way through really, really high level math um, is going to keep getting better. It's already pretty good if you find the best stuff, um, and it's going to keep getting better. And I think that's going to make it a lot easier for parents to homeschool, for parents to supplement. It's going to make it a lot easier for teachers in schools to focus on everything else about the development of the moral character and the discipline and these other skills that kids need to learn. And we're all gonna spend less time thinking about what's the right way to teach, long division. And like we will found really great ways and really good, interesting widgets and good software that trains that efficiently and effectively. And so I think we'll see that continue to happen, and which I think will free up parents and teachers to think more holistically about the kid. And then I think I'm hoping we'll actually see uh, a less of a focus on truancy. And as we can get more confident with demonstrating good academic progress, there will be more freedom in both the kid and the parents' lives. So if you get a
Mm-hmm.
Friday off, you'll be able to, go hang out with your kid and spend a really wonderful time with them and get a fun breakfast and do whatever. And they'll be able to, more parents will work from home and more kids will spend more time at home and you'll get more time with your kids as a consequence of this software getting good. And I think the schools and policies adjusting to match the new reality, which is that you can do really great education outside of a school. And I think those are kind of my thoughts about the big changes coming.
No, I think you're totally onto something there. And I don't know if have you ever heard of the 2 hour school or
Yeah,
whatever?
so they're
It's
they're a big investor in Recess, and we actually we work with them, so they're one of our customers. So we
okay.
provide a lot of their workshops. So they do 2 hour learning in the morning, and then
Uh
they
huh.
do life skill workshops in the afternoons. And for a while, we were their exclusive provider for a couple of schools,
Uh huh.
and we still do tons of classes with them. Also, this is kind of secret knowledge, or I would say a leak. We have a 2 hour learning type competitor product coming out that I think works better than 2 hour learning. And we also partner with 2 hour learning. So if families on Recess want to use the 2 hour learning product, we can get it for them at a really big discount.
Oh, nice. Okay,
So
that's
we're
super cool. Yeah, I think that's like such a it's I not that it's revolutionary, but it kind of is because
Yeah.
when I think about my teaching experience and I think about, the kids I had in my class and like you said that, I did everything in my absolute power to try to help each kid and I did everything that I possibly could to. I would say teachers definitely do see the kid more as like a whole child, but we're kind of stuck in
Yes.
this weird box. And
Yes.
then it's like kind of even the principal, I would say, like really does see them as a whole child. But then as you get past that, no, they're a number. Like they really
I think
are
the
a number to
whole
those people.
I think all of the individuals care a ton.
Hmm.
I think something about the way the system is structured, it actually kneecaps the individual's
Yes,
ability to take action and think that way and work that way.
100%. And I just think about like I was super excited to become a teacher. I didn't love college per se because I have a double major in
Cool.
early childhood and education. So like I can teach up to third grade. And
Yeah.
so I had to take my early childhood stuff, which was all about play and child-led learning and, project-based learning and really going with the children's interests and all of this stuff. And then I went into my education portion, which is elementary ed. And it was like, none of that. Like
Oh,
this
that's
is
sad.
very structured and like you got to see like this night and day difference. And so when I was going into it, I was like, I am going to be different. I am not going to be this. And, I
Yes.
had to go and teach into the public schools, obviously, because that's just what you
Right.
do when you're going through your education degree. You have to go into these classrooms and student teach and all that stuff. And, I saw these teachers and I'm thinking to myself, like, I feel like we could do this different. Like, why don't we just do it different? And then I got into it and then I put my foot in my mouth and I was like, holy crap, this is why. It's because of the
Yeah.
way that the system is set up and it's really, really hard. Even if you're like, I know that play based learning and project based learning and actual personalized learning, not what the school system deems as
Right.
personalized learning, is super, super important. But I am really struggling to try to do that myself, especially when
Yeah.
I had 25 first graders. Like when you have
Yeah.
25 6 year olds in a room, like it feels literally impossible. And I
Yeah.
honestly think it is kind of impossible
Yeah.
to really meet them as a whole child and let them do that. But I do think, like you said, parents are starting to kind of wake up to this and think like, okay, is there a different way? I think, like you said, a lot of jobs are going to, online where you can actually work from
Yeah.
home. And
Yeah.
I do think that that's going to shift our culture and how things work. And with AI and what it's
Yep.
going to do in our world, it's so crazy. And I actually just saw this post as you were talking about this, and I asked you this question because I saw it this morning. And there was an article actually done, and it says that the future of 12 education is set to lose 16 million enrollments by 2030. And they are actually predicting that only about 50% of the public will go to public school, another 30%, almost 31% into homeschooling, 17-ish% private
Wow.
schools. And
Crazy.
then the other one is like off grid, whatever that means. I don't even know. Like just they're doing their own thing, I guess.
Unschool, totally off. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it is shifting in that way that parents are starting to see that. I think that the way our society is set up is starting to shift, where we don't
Yeah.
have just that normal 9 to 5 job that we go to every day. Like you can work from home, it's a little more flexible, things like that. And I do, like I said, I am so interested in the AI learning side of things,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to literacy, because all I've ever seen as far as an educator, I would say it's kind of like AI learning. You know, you have like Imagine Learning and you have Waterford and you have like all of these different, apps that you use within the school system. And it's supposed to be more, based on what the child's skill base is. And it obviously it works a lot better if you can sit there with your child to
Of course.
ensure that they're not just clicking, because that is
Yeah.
one thing that they'll do. They're like, I'm just going to click. And that also is because they don't understand, like, why do I have to learn this, right? It's just something they
Totally.
have to check off, right? So I think that we could go into like why certain programs are going to work, and a lot of it has to do with them understanding the why behind it.
Yep.
But I've just been so interested to like see, I want to so badly see what the 2 hour learning is, because
Oh,
I
I can show
know,
you.
yeah, like I'm so
Do you want to
interested
hear?
in like the
Do you want
AI
to
part
hear?
of it on teaching reading. Oh, it's not AI?
I shouldn't
Oh,
say
is
this.
it?
They're one of my investors, but yeah, there's currently they have plans to make AI. There's
Uh-huh.
currently it's actually it's 80% IXL, so it's almost
Oh,
entirely
okay.
IXL,
Uh-huh.
and they do some clever stuff about choosing which IXL lesson you should learn from,
Mm-hmm.
and they're slowly adding in more different applications, but there's
Mm-hmm.
currently very little AI in the product, if any.
Okay, and
Um,
I have used IXL as an educator, like had my
yeah,
kids use
yeah,
it,
they're
but yeah,
fine.
and you can assign different skills and stuff. So like based on my assessments, I was like, okay, this child needs more work in
Yeah,
adding and subtracting within 20 or whatever, right? And you can kind of assign different things. Parents, have you ever wondered what your kids are really learning about important topics like taxes, freedom, and responsibility? As an educator, I once had to teach a social studies lesson that only focused on the positives of taxes, completely ignoring the downsides of over taxation or the importance of personal responsibility. It made me realize how limited the perspective is in many traditional curricula. That's why I'm so passionate about the Tuttle Twins books. These books teach kids both sides of important issues like economics, freedom, and entrepreneurship in a way that's fun, engaging, and easy to understand. They help children think critically and understand the world in a more balanced way. If you're ready to check it out, use my link down below to explore their incredible resources, give your kids the tools to think for themselves, and support my podcast. And then if they get it wrong, it will walk them through, like, here's how you do it and whatever.
yeah,
And I think if you're using something like that and you're able to, because I know they have guides, right? So, like,
yeah,
you
right,
actually can walk around and make sure that the kids are understanding what it is that they
yeah,
are learning and all of that. And so I think, like I said, again, it's how you use it. And I do know that I listened to a podcast with the founder of it. I can't remember her name right
which
now.
one, Joe or Mackenzie?
Mackenzie.
Cool.
And she was talking about how, yeah, like it's not like a chatbot, right? Like it's not like
There's
they're
definitely
using
no, yeah, there's definitely no
it.
chatbot. They do,
Yeah.
they're using AI to kind of analyze how engaged the kid is.
Okay.
So they're checking to see if their kid's like squirming and moving around and to see
Uh-huh.
if they're just clicking.
Uh-huh.
So they have an AI that checks both those things. And their
Okay.
reading passages are AI generated. They do have some AI generated passages that matches to the students. Like, I don't know if you know Decodables or Project Read or some of these things.
Yeah.
They do have something. They have something that's like kind of similar to that,
Mm-hmm.
um, but it's
So do
not.
they teach them, like, I'm sorry, I'm going down a different rabbit hole that's
That's
not
okay.
even what this is, but like is it phonics skills? So they're like, okay, this is
Now,
EA and EA says E
so
and
the
this is.
really the really early kid stuff is all done. Is not the computer stuff.
Oh,
So
okay. So they don't even
like
do that.
yeah, that stuff's in person. That stuff is in person. It's kind of once you hit like fourth grade, like I think third grade, fourth grade,
Oh.
fifth grade. But it's I think the software is particularly good. Is is much better for kids 6th to 12th grade.
Oh, okay.
Um,
So they're
it-
waiting until they're a little bit older to like allow them to be on those
they're
type.
trying everything. I mean, I think they're on the right path, and they're really
Uh-huh,
good at,
for sure.
yeah, yeah. So I like that stuff. But yeah, and it's fun if you're a homeschooler who wants to use those products. We I think can set up working with them nicely and stuff like that. So if you and they're an investor, so I think we can get early access and things like that if you have a hard time getting a hold of it.
Interesting. Okay, sorry, I kind of went on a tangent there, but I just thought it was interesting because I assumed that you guys were kind of like, I didn't know you guys worked
Competitors.
together in at all,
Well,
but I
we are both
assumed.
competitors and collaborators. I think both us and them think that the we're not competing against each other, we're competing against the status quo. And
Yes.
so we work together. They're a customer of ours, we're a customer of theirs. They're an investor in us. So there's tons of overlap and stuff and yeah, it's yeah.
Yeah, I think that's super cool. I was wondering if you guys would ever even collaborate together because, like I said, I just kind of saw it in my brain and I was like, okay, there's like this 2 hour learning, there's recess. Like, I feel like you guys would be really compatible
Yeah,
together. And
we thought about collaborating to launch a virtual school in Arizona.
oh,
Um,
really?
and then decide, yeah, it was kind of hard for us to figure out the details, but
Yeah, and
yeah, we
I'm
like
I'm
them.
really mad at my state because I know I follow her on Instagram and she was saying that she couldn't get a school in Utah and I was like, "Okay, who do I need to go
Yeah,
fight now because I I think
yeah,
that it would be so good to have it in Utah and I it makes me so sad. So I don't know if there's any progress there, but if you have it online, which like you guys are fully online,
yeah.
right? And then they can figure out I think they do have an online version of their
They
school,
do.
but I don't
Yeah,
know.
they
Yeah.
have Navadio, and Unbound, both based in Arizona, but one of them is open to anyone.
Yeah, so I think that's super cool that we are kind of getting that, but some kids really thrive with that in person and some parents just
Yeah,
want that and they want the in person. But anyways, we're going to go
yeah,
off of off of that now, but if parents wanted to start incorporating more
yeah,
interest-led learning at home,
yeah.
what are some simple steps or advice that you would give them to do that with their kids?
If your kid is on YouTube, the first thing I would recommend is have them just show you their suggested videos. In their suggested videos is contained most of their interests. So that is like a really quick and easy way to kind of find out what are the things that they like to do and they're interested in. And even
Mm-hmm.
just take a screenshot of their YouTube homepage and send it to ChatGPT and say, what are some interesting classes that I could sign my kid up for or ways that I could help support my kid's interest? And it'll do really well at that. If your kid's not, that's like this, if your kid's on YouTube, that's a really interesting little idea. Um, Otherwise, I have this take a couple hours and um, just hang out with your kid and do whatever they want to do and
Mm-hmm.
just like kind of follow them around and like ask questions about what they're doing and seem really interested in it and seem impressed by their knowledge if they've picked up knowledge, even if it means nothing to you and you can't really figure out what's going on, kind of you know, yeah, seem impressed and ask them some questions about what they're working on, what they're doing, and I think they'll come to you. If you do that a couple times, they'll come to you with their interests and show you proactively. And I think you'll have an opportunity to steer how they spend their free time without pulling things away or introducing screen time limits or being negative. I think you can actually do a lot of helping them find their way by through positivity and interacting with them. And I think you can build this relationship where they like to come show you the things they're working on instead of kind of like hiding their iPad or hiding their device. Um, and I have this story about my mom. I played a lot of this video game. My mom came and sat down next to me one day and asked me a bunch of questions. She hated it for 2 years. And then one day she came and sat down behind me and asked me questions about it. And like, it's an emotional moment for me to remember. I can't even talk about it in a lot of depth. And I remember it 20 years later. And so I think though, if you kind of go do that with your kid and try to reserve any judgment and reserve any worries, your fears, your anxiety about like, oh my gosh, is my kid's brain rotting? Is this going on? And try and really understand like why do they like this? What do they like it? What's interesting about it? and they will make mistakes, right? They'll choose the candy over the nutritious meal a fair amount of the time. And yeah, find out why, and I think if you can do that, you'll earn a lot of trust and respect from your kid, and they'll look at, and when you do then go say, hey, I think this really is not a good way for you to spend your time, and this is the reason why. I think if you've shown them real interest and support for what they like, they'll they'll take your words a lot more seriously, and they'll actually listen. Um, and so I would say, yeah, those are a couple practical small things. Um, and then I think Recess, and I think there are other cool programs out there. If you can sign up for those and get to know one of the guides, one of the charismatic young people who know your kid pretty well and understand your kid, you can talk with them about, you know, how to set up the right experiences.
Yeah, I think everything you just said is super important. And really, I mean, obviously, as they're younger, they're super curious about the world. So they're going to ask you a million questions always. That's just what
Yeah,
kids do.
yeah,
Why? What's this? What happens when they're always asking questions, and they're going to share with you their interests always. Like they
totally.
are going to
Yes.
tell you whatever it is that they truly care about. And you can really tell when a child is obviously obsessed with something because they never stop talking about it and they just want to learn more about it. And that's like what fills their brain every second of the day. And so I think, like you said, if you just step back and just talk to your kid, like obviously you're going to know what it is that interests them. And I think too, because I've, heard parents say like, I don't know, my kid just doesn't like, they're not like super interested in a lot of things or whatever. And I think, you know, as a society and as adults, we kind of go into this as well, is that we don't have enough time being bored and to really explore what excites us because we're constantly like either on a device, watching something that's really just quite dumb and doesn't have anything to do with anything. And so I think that's really hard, even as an adult, to, stop and really be bored for a second, because I think that when we're bored, we're going to find things that are interesting to us, whether it's like we pick up a pencil and we start drawing and we realize, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, I really like drawing, or whatever it is, right? So I think that's an important piece too. And then, like you said, not just like hating technology, because it is something that it's not going to go away anytime soon. It's just going
Yeah.
to keep advancing. And I think if we allow our kids to understand how to use technology in a beneficial way and to explore the things that, we find interesting and to learn and all of this stuff, like it doesn't have to all be evil, and there is
I think the
good that comes
reverse.
from it.
I think it's the most wonderful, powerful tool for self-learning, for being able to create a career that is interesting to you, that is unique and doesn't exist in the world, to learning new
100%.
things, to creating new things. It's like, it's the most powerful tool on the planet. Powerful tools have dark sides,
Yes.
right? And so, yeah, and I think it's a reasonable approach to say, I don't have the time, energy, or attention to work with my kid to make sure that their device use is really positive, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
just too worked out, too stressed, too much going on to think about that. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's like actually totally reasonable. And so we're going to wait to introduce devices until, my kid's
Mm-hmm.
brain has developed a little bit more and they can self-police and figure out how to use them better. I think that's a reasonable
Well,
strategy.
then
If
maybe
you,
you'll have more time to guide them too, right? Because
yeah,
like we have to
when you
think of ourselves as parents, like we're really just a guide to like help our
yeah,
kids to, be the best version of themselves, whatever that looks like, right? And
yeah,
so I think also being that guide to be able to show them how to properly use technology in
yeah,
a good way, right? Because I
yeah.
mean, social media, you could sit there and like doom scroll
Well,
forever,
part of the problem
or you
is
could
how
learn.
how many adults use social media that way.
Just like doom scroll and just
I
look
I
at
think
dumb
I think
stuff.
a lot of the fear, I think, when you are a parent and you're afraid that the device is going to be bad for your kid, it's because the device is bad for you,
Yes, exactly. And that's what
right?
yeah, like
Yeah,
Instagram, like you can learn so many things from Instagram. I've actually learned
totally,
so many things from it. Like if you looked
totally.
at my Instagram, it's like full of child development stuff. It's
Right?
full of like literacy stuff. It's full of just
Yeah.
like self-development stuff. Like it's just, that's all it is. Or like
It can be amazing.
nutrition and
Yeah.
all of this kind of stuff, right? Like that's what my Instagram is. It's not like just these dumb little things that pop up.
Right.
But like you said, the algorithm will feed you what you're watching. So
Right.
if it's a problem for me, then I would be like, oh my gosh, I'm like sitting here and I just wasted an hour on
Right.
nothing and I learned
Yes.
nothing. Then I'm going to think that my child is going to do the exact same thing. So yeah, I think that you make a great point there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, and so, yeah, that would be my one big takeaway is like or, um, particularly for kid-led learning and self-direction, computers are outstanding tools. And actually, my really short piece of advice is, don't give your kid an iPad. Don't give your kid a phone. Get them a laptop.
Mm,
I worked with a lot of, I met like a few thousand, 4,000, 5,000 homeschoolers. There is
mm-hmm,
a, on recess, and I don't mean to be mean about this, but there's a, one of the most frequent cyberbullying things that gets pulled off, right? Because we do lots of good moderation, is kids calling other kids iPad kids.
oh,
And
interesting.
iPad kids have really low attention spans. They like kind of are emotionally, they have a hard time emotionally regulating. They've got all
Mm-hmm,
these things, and I think they're on the short form media and some of these
mm-hmm,
smaller iOS games, they do provide you a constant stream of dopamine.
mm-hmm,
And so when that dopamine is taken away, right, it creates an emotional reaction and they have a hard time regulating it and they rely on the device to regulate. When they're feeling stressed or they're feeling anxious, they'll turn to one of these little apps or games that gives them these bite-sized amounts of dopamine, the same way that when your kid comes off a sugar rush, they might have like a temper tantrum. I think it's really
mm-hmm,
similar with some of these things. And on the computer, especially if you curate it really well and you just give them Steam as a platform instead of giving them Roblox, the something about the way that you interact with computers and types of applications that are available on computers are just much deeper. It's really
yeah,
the iPad is a consumption tool and the
mm-hmm,
laptop is a creation tool, right?
mm,
Most of the things
yeah,
on the iPad are used to create things. There's Adobe, there's Photoshop, there's these apps, there's GarageBand, there's these things. Whereas on the iPad, it's primarily small games you play, videos you watch. And so that's a very practical, very random piece of advice is I would avoid giving your kid an iPad and give them a computer instead. And it will take a little bit
mm.
extra time to teach them to use the keyboard and figure out how to use Google and search around. But yeah, we notice a huge difference between the kids who grew up on iPad and kids who grew up on laptops.
That is, I've never even really thought about that, but that's like a great point to make. It really is. Cause I mean, even when I think about my computer, like when I sit down to do something on my computer versus when I'm on my phone, it is a very different mindset and like the task that you're doing is very different. So that is, I've never really thought about it, but I think that's really important to
And
think about.
80% of kids are on iPad, not computer.
Yeah, I think it's
So
because they think like, oh, it's easier for them to navigate, which it is. I mean, it's easier for them to like navigate through
I think
things, but it's like you said,
yeah,
it's not as high tech or not high tech, but like it has different.
it's more engaging. It's two things.
Yes.
I think a lot of parents look for devices as like pseudo babysitting, like a
Yeah.
kind of a break from having to entertain your kid. And so, yeah, the computer is like the opposite of that. You're actually going to spend 10 hours teaching them how to use it.
Yeah.
And so that where the iPad, like from the time they're like two, they can like point and finger, right? And
Mhm.
so like you just give them that really easy. And there's tons of apps that are made for kids. And so yeah, I
Yeah.
think you're right. It's ease of use, and and then I think connected to ease of use is uh it's like can be like a crutch, a thing you rely on as a way to when you need to make dinner and your kid's like doing something and going crazy for an hour and you're like, here you go. Um,
Yes. And I mean, this is kind of off tangent, but like I'm reading a book right now. It's called what is it called? Hunt, parent, something. I don't know. It's like literally about hunter gatherer societies and
cool.
like how they are looking at how they parent and not even like hunter gatherer, but just like not Western societies and
Yeah,
stuff. And one of the things that they do, obviously, they don't have an iPad at their house in
of
certain
course.
cultures like this. And it's really just about involving your kid in life. Just like have,
Yeah,
like they don't
yeah,
care.
that's the
Like if,
best.
yeah, like let them cook with you, like help, like that obviously is a skill you
That's
need
the
to
best.
learn,
That's the
right?
best.
Let them, it's going to
Yeah,
take longer. It's going to probably be a little bit more frustrating, but let them
yeah,
cook with you, have them help you do the dishes. Like they don't, when they're, especially when you do it when they're really little, right? Like they just think it's
yeah.
fun, like you're playing with them.
Right. It's not a chore
Anyways,
for them.
so
Totally. They
yeah,
want to do the real. I mean, think about,
yeah,
playing house is like a big thing. Playing school,
yeah,
you like
exactly.
totally.
They want to teach others, they want to help, they want to be a part of your community, which is your family,
Yeah,
right? Like, so I think that, and I get it, because there's parents that are like, it's just easier if you just get out of the kitchen,
yeah,
let me do it, and then we'll. But there's so many good benefits with letting your kids, you know, be a part of that life with you, and they
yeah,
learn so many skills and anyways, so
and
many
I think
good
it's
things.
nice
But
quality
like,
time.
yeah, but like you said, I mean, to kind of wrap this up, like I do think that technology is super, super important for the advancement of our society and what we're seeing right now. Like you can learn so many amazing things. You can connect with people you maybe would have never been able to connect with. We're creating so many different, avenues in education using technology. And I think that recess is just going to be one of those many things that is going to be the good. And like you said, there's certain things that you can get on that are stupid little games that do nothing for the child, or
Right.
there's programs like what you guys are doing with recess, which is actually going to help this child to learn something that one they want to learn about, become masters in that, be excited about it, and
Yeah.
then it maybe even takes them down a path of a career. Like that's crazy that you've had kids that are working for big companies like Intel, and it started there. So I think that we need to at least see the good in technology, and that it's not all bad, and that we can use it for good. And I think that your program, or what would you call that, like a program or like a school, like what do you
Recess.
guys call? Yeah.
We are actually changing our name soon to Open School because we're
Okay.
gonna bring in core academics. But yeah,
Oh.
so it will be a la carte school.
Oh,
You can
that's
decide
cool.
to just sign up for the academics, or you can decide just to sign up for the extracurriculars, or you
Mm-hmm.
can just sign up for the social part.
Awesome. Okay, so since you're changing your name and everything, and I'll put the links down below if you can send
Yeah.
me links and all of that good stuff,
Yes.
so
Of
that
course.
people can go
Find
and
out about it.
search
Check
you
it out.
out
Yeah.
there. Yeah,
Totally.
but where can parents find out to learn more about recess and connect with
Recess.
you?
Recess.gg.
Okay.
So if you go to recess.gg
Mm-hmm.
or tryrecess.com, whichever is easy to remember, um, that'll work. And even after we change our name, it'll just reroute you to the new site. So
Perfect.
recess.gg is the best place to go. There's information there, and you can always email me at ben@recess.gg, and I'll get back to you.
Okay, perfect. Well, I'll put all those links down below. Like I said, just send them over to me, or if you have any social media links or anything like that, send them over and I'll put them down in the show notes just so people can reach you easily. But
Amazing.
it has been such a pleasure talking to you, Ben. And like I said, I'm super excited about all of these different avenues in education as I go on my own journey of homeschooling
Yeah.
my kids, and the things that you guys have to offer, and all of these other platforms that, what they have to offer. So it's been super awesome talking to you.
Yeah. Thanks. I had a really good time. This is really fun.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an update. Literacy is the foundation of learning, and every child deserves the tools to succeed. If you're ready to take the next step in your child's education, check out my website at k3homeschoolfoundations.com for resources, curriculum, and support to make literacy simple and effective.